So I'm out here in the garden and I grabbed my Goodwill find for a basket. Love having baskets for going to and fro the garden. They make a great way to carry all my seeds and snips and gloves and zip ties or whatever else I may need out in the garden, my water. And then in the summertime when harvest starts and I'm not planting seeds, I swap it out and still take my gloves and my snips out, but I use it as my harvest basket. And so it works really well. And I have these ear protections in there because I'm expanding out like a little semi-permanent pen for the goats, because Luna's due in just like 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And I need a little bit bigger space for everybody to run around in, and to also kick like a little bit out so he can have his own pen, but still kind of be close to her. So that is why those are in there. So I also realized that I have some flowers that I want to plant now so that they'll be lasting all the way until like September and October. I have more zinnias that I planted over there. Something was eating my zinnias, and so I put it in this container. Oh my gosh, they already popped. You guys, this is so exciting. It usually takes about 2 weeks for zinnias to pop, and because I gave it the greenhouse effect, I have probably 20 starts popping up, and it's protected it from whatever was crawling in there and eating the tops of them off. I'm suspecting that it is slugs and possibly pill bugs that are eating my little fresh baby starts. So here is a big tray of mostly marigolds, but we have amaranth here that I'm just going to take right out of the little seed cell here. It's super easy to do. I'm hoping you can see this the way that I have. Ooh. So it's got a good root cell on it, but it's a little fragile. I'm gonna try to rearrange. All right, there we go. So what I do is when I start to break open or like separate out, because there might have been a lot of, ones going like this. Let me make sure I pushed record. All right. So I just watered these last night because I wanted them to be moist so that the roots were not super brittle, but I was able to break that apart. It still has a really good root base. I'm just going to transplant it into probably a seed cell tray like this one. I just need to fill those up, but I just wanted to show you how I separate these out. I try to leave as much dirt around it as possible, and then I just lay them out in a tray like this, and it makes it super easy just to pop into pots. And I can probably, these like to be sewed a little closer together, so I'll probably do like 2 or 3, but there's I think like 10 here together, so I can't really transplant out all of those in just one big chunk, or it won't do really well. They'll start choking each other out. So amaranth is really beautiful. It's actually the grain. Amaranth comes from these kinds of flowers. After it dries and the flower petals fall off, the grain is actually the seed, and you can toast it or eat it raw. It's pretty amazing. And the marigolds here, I'm using those as pest control, which something ate my pest control, so it's obviously not at the point where it's fragrant enough to avoid getting eaten. I like putting, these are Bootstrap Farmer seed cell trays. They're super hardy, really easy. You just put your finger at the bottom and pop them out like this. Really easy to transplant from, but the slugs, I think, like to hide out under here. So I think that's why they were getting in on some of my other plants and just demolishing them. So I'm gonna get this situated and like cleared off, and then my new seed cell tray here, and I'll show you how I plant those seeds. Okie dokie, I have my Blue Lake pole beans here, and I've got my tray, my seed cell tray. This, like I said, these are Bootstrap Farmer. I found them, you can get them through Amazon. Bootstrap Farmer has their own like store on there, which makes it really easy for ordering and returns and all that. So you don't have to feel like you're 100% supporting Amazon when you buy their stuff through the Amazon website. So I got quite a few packs of these, but they're 72 72 cells, and like I said, they make it really easy to pop up out when you're going to transplant. And what I do is I pop out as many as I'm going to transplant and just put it on a tray. So then I just pick up what I'm transplanting and putting it right into the ground. It really cuts down on the amount of labor of being like bent over or squatting. I spend a lot of time in the squatted position when I'm gardening. So this one is just a Lake Valley Organics. I got it probably at just some store on some seed rack, and then these ones are heirloom ones that I get from Azure Standard. And so I'm just gonna put them in and just press them down. It's okay that these are, you want the soil to be loose over them, but it's okay that there's like possibly a little bit of they're a little bit under the ground, because you think of like this being, you don't want it any deeper than the length of the bean or the width of the bean, and that goes for any seed. So if it's a really small seed, you just really got to surface sow and kind of water it into the dirt. And then misting, I just realized this yesterday when I was watching somebody else's video of why sometimes my starts or my seeds don't germinate as quickly or as well, is because I'm like heavy handing watering them in with a watering can. And I learned yesterday that the best way to water your delicate seeds like amaranth and these other seeds that you just surface sow is with a mister, like a water sprayer, like pressurized water. And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much more sense than just drowning the seeds and probably pushing them more into the dirt than they need to be and are able to germinate from. So if you did not know that, then that is my tip to you today, is to use a water mister when you're starting seeds. And if you're starting seeds inside, it's really less messy to do a little water mister, or even use a squirt bottle on the misting setting, and you'll get a lot better. You'll be able to keep the soil moist, because that's what seeds need, is they need moisture to germinate. And then once the seed germinates, the plant sometimes does fairly well without, being watered every day. You just want to make sure your soil stays somewhat moist. That way it just encourages growth. And if you can water them, oh my gosh, words are really hard for me today. If you can water from the bottom, it will encourage the seeds to drop down. And that one packet filled up, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. So I only have 17 seed cells left out of 72. So this packet was really worth the money for $2.79, and I got what was that, 60 seeds in there out of 1 grams of seeds. 15 grams of seeds. Yeah. So anyways, that was a pretty good deal. And if you didn't know, seeds never expire. They might lose their potency of being able to germinate. Their germination rate might go down, but seeds never expire. Per FDA or whatever, they have to put a expiration date on the seed packets, but that doesn't mean they're bad. So if you've bought, if you've over purchased seeds, or if you've bought like a whole bag of seeds, and you lost them somewhere in your house, like I've done before, those seeds won't go bad. They may like lower their germination rate a little bit, but they're not going to not sprout for you. So don't feel like you have to throw them away. And the cooler that you can keep your seeds, the better. So some people store them in the fridge if their house is really hot. Here in the Northwest, I just store my seeds in the garage, because my garage stays pretty cool. There's times in the summer where the garage heats up, but it hasn't seemed to mess with my germination rate. The only thing that I haven't had good germination on this year was the pineapple tomatillos, which I think are like the little mini tomatillo, more like a ground cherry. And I bought them from M.I. Gardener, and those are the only seeds that didn't that had like 0 germination. And the other packet that I bought from them, actually I take that back. I don't know if it was in my gardener. I can't remember. I want to say it was. Yeah. That packet did not germinate one bit. But the other pack of purple tomatillos that I planted, I had like almost 100% success rate in germination on that one. So, and I planted them right next to each other. So I don't know what happened with that one. I'm kind of bummed because I was looking forward to those pineapple tomatillos, but the purple tomatillos will be beautiful. And I've got a whole bunch of a mix of green and purple tomatillos here that I'll be up potting and then potting right out into the, transplanting right out into the garden. Tomatillos are an amazing plant to grow here in the Northwest. Tomatoes usually don't do really well here for like a big harvest of tomatoes, or they're really late if you can get them to ripen properly on the vine. They're really late in ripening, and so if you're wanting to plant something and get the most bang for your buck, especially when you're talking about preserving food for your family for the winter, I highly recommend the tomatillo. To me, I call it the Northwest tomato, because tomatillos are just amazing on their own in the way that they don't have the inflammatory components like a tomato does. So I don't know if you've ever needed to be like on a low inflammatory diet, and they say like, oh, stay away from nightshades. Well, nightshades are pretty much like all the things that salsa is made of, and bell peppers and hot peppers and tomatoes. But tomatillos don't have that, I forget the word that it is, but they don't have that inflammation marker, and they actually have a really high nutrition high nutrition value, really high in vitamin C. And so what I do is after I harvest the tomatillos, which unlike tomatoes, they last in their little paper lantern shell for quite a while. And what I do is I take that off, I roast them in the oven in like a big roasting pan, and then I'll blend them up, and then I'll can them. And then that green sauce is great to add to soups. It's great as your like sauce base. You can make like a green salsa out of it by just adding jalapenos, cilantro, and onions to it. And if you wanted to use tomatoes, you totally could, but it would make a really nice sauce. It'd be a nice base for an enchilada sauce. You can even take it more in like the Asian direction, and having that sauce as just a base to like grow something out of, like whether you're using it as a sauce to flavor something with, or you just want that nutrition base in your soups. It's really an amazing vegetable, and I think it tends to be more on the fruit side because of the way the seeds are, but it doesn't have a high sugar content, and so it's just kind of a superfood, and it thrives here in the Northwest. And so these are from my save seeds last year, which all those tomatillos were all saved from the year before because they were volunteers in my garden, because I didn't purposely plant tomatillos last year. I just used whatever came up, and unfortunately it wasn't enough because I was focusing more on tomatoes. A whole long thing. I will never grow large sized tomatoes in my garden ever again, and I'm only growing cherry tomatoes this year because of that fact, is that I had to wait all the way until like end of August, September to get a few tomatoes, and they just wasted so much garden space and took a lot of water. So tomatillos don't need that much water, which is a good thing too. Alright, so another one that I'm planting is summer squash, which is zucchini. And a tip to planting zucchini is you want to have at least 3 to 5 plants, because not every single plant will produce vegetables. And the reason for that is that you might have a plant that predominantly produces all male flowers or predominantly produces all female flowers. And so you need the variety of 3 to 5 different plants to help pollinate all of your squash. So I learned my lesson one time. I only had like 1 or 2 plants. Did not get harvest at all. Every time that I've had 3 plants or more, I've had a bumper crop of zucchini. And zucchini is amazing. Like you can freeze that, and yeah, it gets mushy, but you just add it to your soups and nobody knows. It's actually better if you just add it to soups that way, because then nobody knows they're eating zucchini and they're getting the benefits of it without having to like freak out because they're eating zucchini. My family hates zucchini. They complain. I mean, if it's in like bread with sugar and flour, they'll eat it. But for the most part, they do not like zucchini. And if I try to just saute it, everybody's gagging because everybody's super sensitive to anything that may be slimy. So I am the kind of person that I will eat whatever. Like, kind of is not in my favor sometimes, but I really am not picky with food at all. I can eat different foods mixed together. I am not a picky eater, and especially if I know that it's like really beneficial to me to eat it, will give me even a stronger reason to eat it and not be picky. Like I won't not eat something because it doesn't taste good if it's good for me, if that makes sense. So I am planting up extras of these because the ones that I got from Azure, I don't know if they transplanted very well. And this way, that if I have more starts than I can use, I can just gift them to a friend, or put them on the Facebook Marketplace and get them into somebody else's garden. When I first started gardening, I was like, oh, I'm gonna grow starts and I'm gonna sell starts, and that's a whole nother level that I am not set up for or ready for. And so I just scaled back and started using it, using my space for my own personal garden to make it the best that it can possibly be. And then if I have extras, it's really great to be able to gift it to other people, or trade for something that maybe I don't have that they have. So it works out really well. So what I'm planting right now is the sweet meat squash from In My Gardener, and these seeds look really good. They're really plump. So I'm excited to grow these over a trellis that I'll show you possibly in this video. I don't know how far we'll get out there into the garden today. And I'm gonna just, in 2 of these cells, I'm gonna stick 2. That way, if for some reason one of these don't sprout, then I'll have that one that I can separate out. It might be a little late to get pumpkins started, but I'm gonna get it started. These, I just love this. I love the color. I love the shapes. They're so much more appealing to me than those like big orange pumpkins. I'm not a fan of big bright colors. In flowers, I like big bright colors, but I also really love these romantic kind of muted colors. So, all right. So this is not a seed I would even waste planting because it's broken, and the sprouting possibility of it is low because it broke all the way down into the seed form. And so I'm just going to trash that one. And I'm looking for seeds that are strong and puffy, and that will create, oops, I dropped it. Oh, there it is. I think a seed had gotten dropped into my starting soil, and that's what, it's a squash seed. And it was under the dirt when I was digging, and unfortunately I broke it off of the seed that it was started from, so that won't be good. But pumpkins do not need to be planted shallow. Once they start to sprout, their whole the leaves will actually pull, as they're sprouting, the leaves will pull the whole plant out of the dirt. So getting those down into the soil a little bit more so that they can really have that opportunity to bloom out and like come up out of the dirt without pulling all of the whole plant out is really important. So I'm gonna make sure that I label these because for some reason I have not been good about labeling things, and that is really unfortunate when it comes to like needing to know what's in that, what that plant is going to be. So what I like to do, and this is just because I have this available, it's not that I would like purchase this to actually do it this way, but I bought these for little sample tubs of lotion that I was making, or like a salve, and it came with 600 of these dots, and there's no way that I need 600 of the dots, but I do need labels, and so I write it in pencil on here and it doesn't fade. I have them, it's like UV resistant, so that is the way that I have been labeling things here in the greenhouse, and then also out in the garden. And what I do is it just takes two, and I take my popsicle stick. I do it this way, and I've also we don't eat as much yogurt as we used to, but when I was eating, we were eating a lot of yogurt, I was just cutting up the containers. I was trying to look for one to show you. Just cutting up the yogurt containers into strips, but the permanent marker isn't UV resistant, and so they were fading really bad. So I just realized, I learned yesterday while listening to a gardening podcast, that there are pens or markers that are UV resistant, and that you can just label that with those, and then it will turn out just fine. So I'm gonna finish getting these labeled up, and we'll start on the flowers.